Hey guys, my name is Jess. Welcome back to 44's channel. So in today's video, I'm going to go over a number of different coping strategies for stress. Now, stress isn't a bad thing. It only becomes bad when it turns from functional stress into dysfunctional stress, and it's important to manage your stress. So there are a number of different ways in which you can manage your stress. And today's video is going to be based on the Cope Inventory test. So I've included a link below in the description box, and I would suggest that before you watch the rest of this video, you do the test and you see what your main coping strategies are for stress. And I think the reason why you should do that is I wouldn't want all of the information here to now manipulate you into putting different answers when you complete the test. But then of course it's completely up to you. I always think that you are the person who knows your coping strategies the best, and you are ultimately better than a piece of paper that gives you a bunch of results. So the reason why I decided to speak about these different coping strategies is that I did the test a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, and it was really enlightening to me because I realized that my strategy or my coping strategy isn't really a good one. And I don't think there's any good or bad ones. I don't think it's like this one is a good strategy and that one's a bad strategy. I think it's important to look at them and decide, okay, is this strategy serving me? Is there anything positive about this? Is there anything negative about this? Maybe if I incorporated this strategy, it would help with whatever. So I think it's just important to look at your own strategy and decide what's working and what's not working. So just before I start going into all of the different coping strategies, and I'll use an example as I go through all of them, I'll start by showing you how to do the test because it might not be that self-explanatory, and then after that I'll go through all the different coping strategies. Okay, so this is what the Cope Inventory test looks like. You'll see in the description box I've included a link to do the test, and then if you click it, it will download this PDF document. So you can either print it or you can do it on your computer, or whichever way works for you. You can also, because you'll see there's like a bunch of questions, so what you can do is just write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a piece of paper or on the computer. There's just lots of ways to do it, so do what is convenient for you. So I'm going to be sharing with you how to complete this test because I know it might be a little bit confusing. So what you have to do is you have to imagine yourself in a situation where you are under stress or there's a challenge in your life and you feel stressed about it. And then you have to look at all of these. So you look at the first question example. I try to grow as a person as a result of the experience. And then picture yourself in that situation. And then you have to rank yourself on that. So if you feel that you always try to grow as a person as a result of the experience, then you would give yourself a 4. But then if you feel like you don't do that at all, then you give yourself a 1. And you may be wondering what happens if sometimes I do this or sometimes I don't do that. I don't know. It changes. Just choose the one that you mostly do. Okay, so you're going to fill out all 60 of them. So for the first one, say we usually do this a medium amount, so we put 3. And then the second one, I turn to work or other substitute activities to take my mind off of things. So say you never do that. You always just jump in and do the problem. You solve the problem. You don't get distracted. Then you would put a 1. And then you would go all the way down, say 2, then 1, then 3, and you complete all the way down to 60. Okay, and then what you're going to do is once you've finished all 60 of them, you're going to go look at the bottom and you'll see there's all the different types of coping strategies. When I did it, I didn't look at the bottom to begin with, so don't concentrate on the numbers because I was worried it was going to influence my answers. And then what you do is you say, okay, so the first one, you look for 1, so you go up to 1, and then you write down, oh, I got 3 for that. And then the next one was 29, so you go up to 29, so you add plus whatever you got, whatever you gave yourself for 29. So say you gave yourself a 4, and then you add whatever you got for 38. So if you got 1, so you add 1, and then whatever you got for 59, so say for 59 you gave yourself a 3, so that would be 3 plus 4 plus 1 plus 3, which would give you a total of 11. And then you would write 11 next to this first one. And then you would do that for all of them. And then at the end, you would choose the ones where you get the highest mark. So the highest mark that you can get for each of these is 16. And you can get, you might not get one who is the dominant one. You might get 5 of them which have the greatest mark. So that just means that, we don't just have one coping strategy. We can resort to many of them. So don't think, oh no, like I've done something wrong. If you get 4 of them that are 16, example. Okay, so as you've seen now, there are a bunch of different ways in which you can cope with stress. And I'm going to go through all of them with you now and give you a better example of what each of these would look like. And I'm going to be using this table that I found from, here are the details below. And the reason why I decided to use this table is that I think they've categorized it quite well. In some of the other places that have the COPE test, I see that they don't always include humor, but this table and the test includes it. So you can see that there are 4 categories. There's problem-focused, emotion-focused, less useful, and recently developed. And then within each category, there are a number of different coping strategies. So I'm going to be going through all of the strategies with you by giving you an example. Okay, so the example I'm going to be using is, imagine you're back in high school, and in a week's time, you are going to be writing 7 tests in a space of 5 days. So on Monday, you're going to be writing English and maths. On Tuesday, you're going to be writing geography. On Wednesday, you'll be writing business studies and accounting. On Thursday, you'll be writing science. And then on Friday, you'll be writing an art test. So can you imagine how stressful this would be? There's very little time to study for all of this. You have to prepare in advance, and you would be feeling really stressed. So I'm going to be using this example through each of the different coping strategies, and I'll help you to see the different ways in which people would deal with this problem. Okay, so starting with our first category, which is problem-focused, we see the first one is active coping. So this person is going to feel stressed as long as the problem still exists. So they have to step in and actively solve the problem, or make some steps in order to get rid of this problem. So with our example, if you had this coping strategy, you would either go up to your teacher and say, please can you move the test to 2 weeks away so that we have more time to study, or please can you cancel all the tests? Or you would sit down and study until you knew all the work. So this person is sitting down and seeing what the problem is, and then they're either dealing with it directly or they are going to someone who can move the problem or get rid of the problem. So the second strategy is the planning strategy. So if you have this strategy, it means that before you start doing anything, you're going to sit down and plan how you're going to do it. So in our example, you'll sit down and decide, okay, so I'm writing a test in a week's time, so I'll start studying every single day, and on Monday I'm going to study maths and English. On Tuesday I'm going to study some business studies and accounting. On Wednesday I'm going to study all of geography, and I'm going to look over maths. And then next to each of the different things, you'll say I'm going to study it for 20 minutes, and then I'm going to study that for an hour. So you really plan every single thing that you're going to do before you actually pick up a book and start studying. So the third coping strategy is called suppressing competitive activities. So a person with this strategy is someone who, instead of spending 20 minutes on that, and then 20 minutes on that, and 20 minutes on that, and 20 minutes of that, they will take all their subjects and then they will list them in order of importance. So in our example, this person will look at their list of tests, and they'll say English and maths are the first ones. So I'm going to study everything English and maths first until I know all of English and maths, and then once that's completed, I'll move on to the geography. And then once I've studied everything geography, then I'm going to be doing business studies and accounting. So this person won't say, okay, I'm going to study 5 minutes of English, now I'm going to study 20 minutes of science, now I'm going to study 10 minutes of geography. They have to look at it systematically. Okay, first English, then maths, then geography, then business studies. So the fourth coping strategy is restrained coping. So someone with this type of coping strategy is going to hold off from jumping and doing something until the timing is right. So in our example, imagine for our business studies test, we have to write an essay, and our teacher said that on Thursday, they are going to give us the title of the essay. So that means that this person is not going to pick up their business studies book and study until they have the essay topic, because it doesn't make sense to them to start studying all of the different things until they know what they have to study. They need the scope, they need the question. So the fifth coping strategy, and the last one in the category problem focused, is called seeking help or social support for instrumental reason. So if you have this as a coping strategy, it means that you will approach your colleagues or your teachers or your support system around you, and you will ask them for advice on time management, how to study better, how to manage your stress better. So in our example, you will go up to your maths teacher and ask them to tutor you, or you'll find a tutor outside of the school who can help you with something, or you'll speak to a student who's already done your course and ask them for advice, or to ask them for past papers that you can go over, or just to ask them how they manage the course. So it's basically about asking those around you how they would suggest that you would tackle all the different subjects and the best way in which you should study in order to do well. So moving on to our next category, which is called emotion focused, we see that our first strategy is called positive reinterpretation. So someone with this strategy is someone who will change the situation in their mind so that it doesn't look all chaotic and stressful and negative and this awful, horrible experience, but instead it looks really positive and something that's fun. So instead of looking at all this mountain of work and saying, oh my gosh, this is horrible, this is awful, they'll look at it and they'll be like, I really enjoy challenges. This is going to help me become a better person. I'm going to learn so much from studying all of this. I really enjoy writing tests. I feel that I don't really study that well unless I'm under a lot of pressure. So it's really good that we're writing all of them together because I feel like I'm going to do really well. So this person's just changing the situation in their mind so that it doesn't look like a mountain at all. Then the second type of coping strategy in this category is called acceptance. So this is a person who, instead of complaining or venting about it or saying this is so unfair or anything like that, they'll just sit down and get on with it. So say their friends around them are saying like, oh no, it's so unfair, we shouldn't be writing science already, we haven't done any of the work, and it's so unfair that the teacher gave the business studies essay so late, it's so ridiculous. This person will be like, oh well, it is what it is, like let's just get on with it, and they just completely accept it. They don't want to change the situation, they just accept it. So the third coping strategy is called denial. So someone with this coping strategy is someone who almost denies that there even is a problem. So while other people, example, are super stressed out that there's 7 tests and this is horrible, how they're going to do this, this is super stressful, like everyone else is having breakdowns, this person is in their brain denied that 7 tests is stressful. They've like detached from that, and they may even deny the fact that there even are 7 tests. Maybe they'll say, oh well, I'm sure that the business studies test is going to be moved because the teacher gave the essay too late. So they aren't accepting the reality that there are 7 tests coming up, and that's actually an extremely stressful situation. So the fourth coping strategy in this category is called turning to religion. So someone with this coping strategy is someone who might pray before their tests. They may pray for the answers. They'll look to a higher power to help them through the stress and to help them through the problem. Then the fifth and final coping strategy in this category is called emotional social support. So this is similar to the seeking support for instrumental reasons, except this one is focused on emotion. So in the previous one, it was about asking all the people around you for help on how they navigated the course, how can I best time manage, how can I best manage my stress, how do I do well. In this situation though, the person is looking for support for their emotions. So example, if someone has failed all of their maths tests this year and they're feeling like the biggest failure in the world and they're worried that they're going to fail again and they're just like, I'm just a complete waste of space because I keep failing my maths test, then this person will go up to someone in their social support system and will say, hey, I'm feeling like a failure. Please help me with this. And then they might speak to the person about how they feel, and the other person could give them advice and say, hey, you're not a failure. There's a lot more to you than just your ability to do maths. And they'll encourage them through them. They might give them like encouragement and positive support. So the next category is called less useful. So I know that this seems like quite a negative category, but it's not saying there's no points behind the things within this category. It's just saying that with regards to the problem being solved, these things aren't helping. They're not reducing the problem. They're not making the problem go away. They aren't having an impact on the problem. So the first one is focusing on and venting emotions. So a person with this as their coping strategy is someone who will express how angry they are or how upset they are about the situation in the first place. They may say, it's absolutely ridiculous that we have 7 tests all in 1 week. How can we write 2 tests on 1 day? The teachers really don't care about us. They only think about their own subject, and they don't realize that we aren't just writing maths. We're writing we have a million other subjects as well, and the person may go on to say it's so unfair that our business studies teacher's only giving us the essay on Thursday. We don't even have a whole week to prepare for that. And I know I've done a lot of this in my life. And with regards to tests, I'll vent a lot about the situation and how unfair it is. And I feel like it is still good to vent your emotions, because I know for me that can help me think of a plan. So example, if I'm venting it, it's like I've identified the problem and I'm saying it's super unfair, and then after I've vented about it, I can turn to my friend and say, okay, well, why don't we go to the teacher and ask her to move the test up a week? So then the second one in this category is called behavioral disengagement. So this may take the form of procrastination. This person they are adopting a hopeless or helpless attitude in which they're saying, oh well, I hope the test gets moved, or oh well, like, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just not going to study or do anything. I'm going to watch the clouds outside. And it's doing absolutely nothing. Your behavior is not one of studying or going to the teacher or doing anything. You're just maybe cleaning your room or eating a bunch of food, or it's one of avoidance. So the third one in this category is called mental disengagement. So this is like the previous one, except it's about your brain or your attitude as opposed to your actual behavior. So in the previous one, it was about, instead of sitting down and studying and doing the work, you are now cleaning or cooking or writing a book. You're doing a bunch of other things that's not studying. Whereas mental disengagements may be cutting off from how it's impacting you. You're cutting off from the stress, and you may distract yourself with a bunch of different things so that you're not thinking about how stressful the situation is. So instead of sitting down and studying, you don't have that stressful feeling because your mind is not on it. Your mind is on something else. So it's like watching TV or doing something else so that your mind is not thinking about it. So I know these two may seem really similar, but the difference is that when you have a behavioral disengagement, you could still be thinking about the test. So example, if you got home on Monday and now you're like, oh, I really need to study for that maths test. But then you're like, but I'd rather clean my room. And then you get up and clean your room. And while you're cleaning your room, you're still thinking about the test. Like a good example is if you have to now study for the test, but now you've gone onto Netflix instead. And now you're watching Netflix, but you're not really enjoying it that much. Because the whole time you're busy thinking, oh, you get that guilt. So you still have this guilt, and you're like, oh, I'm watching Netflix, and there's a maths test, but I'm not going to study for the maths test, but you still kind of feel stressed. But then with regards to the mental disengagement, so I know, like, for me, I do this. I can actually just cut off. I pretend that it doesn't exist. I suppose that's similar to denial, but I get busy with a bunch of other things so that I'm not even thinking about the fact that I have a maths test. And then because of that, I could do something without feeling stressed out about the fact that I haven't done the studying. So it's like I'm still aware of the fact that there is a test and there are all these things and there is all this stuff that I have to do, except I'm not carrying that stress around me. It's like in my head I'm thinking, okay, I'll deal with that. When I sit down and actually deal with it, then I'll go into that emotional space and I'll feel that stress. And then because of that, I'm able to sleep better at night. I don't things don't keep me awake at night because I can literally chop it off. I'm like, okay, I can deal with you later. But I mean, I have identified in my life that this isn't necessarily a good strategy to make, because it's ultimately ignoring the problem. It's not like I can immensely chop off from it, but like the problem's not going away. So you might as well just switch back on and actually just deal with the problem and get it away. Because the thing is that it can become more stressful the more you are holding off the problem. So even though you're like, okay, like this isn't stressing me now, like the longer that you're not jumping in and dealing with the problem, the more stressful it's actually going to become. And then the thing is when you actually jump in and do the problem, you find out that it was a lot better and easier than you even thought it would be. So moving on to the next category, these are the recently developed categories. And based off the source, this is from 2006. So if this was recently developed in 2006, I'm pretty sure it's not recently developed now. But the first one is substance abuse. So someone with this coping strategy is someone who would resort to alcohol, tobacco, drugs in order to disengage from the problem, or in order to get through the problem. And they may go out to parties a lot and do a lot of drinking, or they may come home and drink some wine. You should hopefully not be doing this in high school, but I know that there are some people who do. And then I think that food should also be added into this category, because I feel like food can also be an addiction, especially sugar, because instead of sitting down and studying, people may find themselves in the kitchen all the time or eating a lot of chocolate in order to deal with their stress. So that food is definitely a coping strategy. And then the last one is called humor. So this is someone who will turn it into a funny situation, who will make a ton of jokes, who might laugh about, oh, ha ha ha, as per usual, the business studies teacher's giving us the essay in the last second, and they'll just crack jokes all the time, and it's like their humor is covering up their stress. This, in my eyes, is quite similar to turning it into a positive situation, except I think it's, with humor, you don't actually have to feel anything. You can just say a joke and actually not feel anything. Whereas with positive reinterpretation, you could feel like happy and good. With regards to South Africa, I feel like we are a country and we have a culture that deals with stress with humor. So every time, example with load shedding and everything, instead of us all getting upset about it, even though we do get upset about it, I mean, there's just tons of jokes everywhere. Everyone just laughs about the situation. And that's a type of coping strategy. So those are all the coping strategies from the Cope Inventory test. As I said in the beginning of the video, there aren't any right or wrong ones. I know that one said it was less useful, but as I said, it's saying it's less useful in terms of actually solving the problem. But really, all of them have their pros and their cons, and it's really up to you to look at what your coping strategies are and to decide if they are serving you or if they are hampering you. I think self-reflection is extremely important, and it's just about looking inside and decide, is this serving me? Also bear in mind that we may have different coping strategies around different people and with different events, and there's not always just one coping strategy. You may have a multiple of different coping strategies. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to share what your coping strategy is, I'd love to hear that, or maybe if you used to be something and now you switched to something else, I'd also love to hear your insights on the different coping strategies. And can you also please give this video a like if you enjoyed it, And also, if you haven't already, can you subscribe to my channel, and then make sure to press the bell that's next to the subscribe button, because when you do that, YouTube will give you a notification every time I post a new video. But thanks again for watching, and hope to see you next time. Bye guys!